So over the past week or so, Tyson Fury has taken to social media to urge Anthony Joshua to sign the contract for their proposed fight on December 3rd. Anthony Joshua came out and said, of course, I'm going to sign the contract, but it's with the lawyers at the moment and they need to do what they do. But it seems Tyson Fury has grown impatient. And yesterday he set a deadline for Anthony Joshua to sign. The deadline passed, and then Tyson Fury came out with this video saying that he's moving on. And there's other instances where he's saying he's going to fight Manuel Charr instead of Anthony Joshua. Now, Frank Warren seems to be singing from a slightly different hymn sheet because he still seems hopeful that the fight can go ahead. He said that Tyson Fury is frustrated, but again, the way he's talking, he sounds very diplomatic. He's not coming out taking shots at Matchroom yet. And Matchroom are the same with Frank Warren and Queensberry Promotions. They're also being diplomatic. And so for those people who want to see the fight, I think they can take some hope from that. The fact that the two promoters who are normally at each other's throats are actually kind of being, as I say, diplomatic, respectful, reserved, however you want to describe it. Now, Frank Warren, of course, is in the Frank Warren business. Yes, he represents Tyson Fury, but ultimately Frank Warren's main objective is to see his business succeed. And he's going to make a lot more money from Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua than he would make from Tyson Fury versus Manuel Charr. Don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. So you can see why Frank Warren wouldn't want to let this situation go, why he would try to get it done, particularly now that AJ appears to be vulnerable. AJ is coming off back-to-back losses. He had a mental breakdown in the ring. And it looks like the perfect time, and I'm sure, or I imagine at least, Frank Warren thinks the same. He thinks, I would imagine, that it's the perfect time to fight Anthony Joshua. So, yeah, Frank Warren is looking out for, ultimately, his best interest, as in financial interest of Queensberry Promotions, but he don't want to let go of this fight. But Tyson Fury, again, his interests are his own. Tyson Fury is looking for whatever, clout, acceptance from the public. I mean, he is as establishment as it gets these days, Tyson Fury. You know, he started out earlier on in his career, you know, the pre-layoff hiatus Tyson Fury was kind of coming out with all these quote-unquote controversial statements, and he was being overtly anti-establishment and what have you. And now he's done a complete 180 and gone in the opposite direction, and he has become exactly what he used to accuse Anthony Joshua of being, which is basically an establishment lackey, a stooge for the establishment. And so when it comes to trying to figure out what Tyson Fury really wants in his career, I think he just wants to be loved. He just wants the adulation of the fans. I think he wants all of Britain and all of the world to kneel before him and praise him and all this kind of thing. I think that's what he wants in terms of his boxing achievements, at least. That's what Tyson Fury has always craved. And I think that's where a lot of the animosity towards Anthony Joshua stemmed from. Because AJ, for the longest time, was a bigger name and he was more popular in the UK than Tyson Fury. And I think that's why Fury was always taking swipes at him. But now Anthony Joshua is, well, on the other end of the equation, where Tyson Fury at this stage, you could argue, is a bigger star than AJ. He's certainly still undefeated. He's got a WBC World Heavyweight title. AJ's coming off back-to-back defeats and he's got no belts. But it seems like Fury wants to finish this whole AJ rivalry once and for all by getting in there, fighting the guy, again, who I believe he thinks is at his weakest moment, and then take all AJ's fans and take 100% of the attention of the public. I think this is what Tyson Fury craves. But fighting Manuel Charr is a strange thing. Tyson Fury has in the past said that he is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Now, if you're going to put yourself on that kind of pedestal, then you have to be held to that standard. This is why I was never someone that agreed with this idea that Floyd Mayweather was TBE, the best ever, because when you put yourself on that pedestal as the best ever, you're then being held to the same standard as Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Jones Jr., etc., etc. And if you're not willing to go to the extremes that they went to in order to prove their greatness, then from my perspective, you can't be the TBE unless you go to those extremes of risk taking and so on, without catch weights and without all this other stuff, without the retirements, retire and then come back and retire. I mean, Ray Leonard did a bit of that, but not to the extent of Mayweather. Mayweather really made an art out of the whole retiring thing and then coming out of retirement to fight particular fighters who he felt were ready to be taken or matched up well with him stylistically while avoiding other fighters. So that, to me, isn't enough to be called TBE, because you've got people out there like Muhammad Ali who fought everybody. There was no funny business. There was no, oh, let me retire and then I'm going to let everybody fight each other and beat each other up. Then I'll come out of retirement and whoever's the last man standing, I'll fight him. Ali didn't do that. Ali fought everybody. He took on all comers. And so if you're going to call yourself the greatest of all time, you have to be held up to the same standard as Ali in terms of the risks he was taking. You see, whenever people think about the greatest fighter in whatever, pound for pound or the heavyweight division in history, they often look at it from the perspective of a fantasy matchup. Like, what would happen if Mike Tyson fought Muhammad Ali? Or what would happen if Tyson Fury fought Lennox Lewis, etc.? I don't tend to get into that so much. I did do a series of videos a few years ago called Fantasy Matchups. But when it comes to assessing a fighter's greatness, I don't base it on who I think would win in a fantasy matchup between, let's say, Tyson Fury and Riddick Bowe or whatever. I don't do it like that because that's too much rooted in opinion, and it's not enough rooted in facts and what they actually did in the ring, achievements. So when I'm rating Muhammad Ali's greatness, I'm looking at his achievements more so than would he beat Tyson Fury in a fight. You see what I'm saying? I think that's a more fair way to judge it. So, yeah, Tyson Fury has only had 5 world title fights so far. 3 of them have been against the same man. Then he fought a 38 or 39-year-old Klitschko and a Dylan White who was coming off a knockout, being knocked out cold 2 fights before against Povetkin. And then, of course, the trilogy with Wilder. But how really good is Wilder? Who's Wilder ever beat? So I give Tyson Fury tremendous credit for what he's done so far. Tremendous credit. But again, if he's placing himself on the pedestal of being the greatest heavyweight of all time, then I've got to hold him to that standard. I've got to look at what Ali did, and even Mike Tyson. Tyson wasn't around in the strongest era during the 1980s, but at least he fought everybody, and he became undisputed. And you can't do no more than that. Just fight whoever's there at the time. And as I say, Ali fought everybody. Tyson Fury hasn't even shown the desire to fight everybody. He seems to want to do this Mayweather thing. Oh, I'm retired, I'm not retired. All this mucking around rather than just doing what it takes to actually qualify, at least in my eyes, as the greatest heavyweight of all time. I mean, again, 5 world title fights. Lennox Lewis had about 17. Mike Tyson had about 16 or 17. Muhammad Ali had 20-something. He's not in that conversation yet as far as I'm concerned. Particularly not when there are lots of heavyweights out there who he could fight. I mean, let's hope that this Manuel Charr thing is just some kind of elaborate ruse or bluff by Tyson Fury. Let's hope that that's the case. Because if he goes ahead with the Manuel Charr fight, that's really inexcusable if you're calling yourself the greatest heavyweight of all time. There are so many contenders out there who would be happy to step in and fight Tyson Fury on December 3rd, I'm sure. I mean, let's have a look here. I'm sure you guys don't need me to tell you that Manuel Charr isn't ranked in the top 10 of any of the governing bodies, certainly not in the WBC. So why Tyson Fury is picking this particular guy is beyond me. But let's have a look at the WBC rankings, because there's lots of guys in the other rankings, but Tyson Fury is WBC champion. Frank Sanchez, he may have a fight scheduled, but I'm sure a guy like Sanchez would drop his scheduled fight against, is it Carlos Negron? to fight Tyson Fury on December 3rd. And you can offer him the fight and see what he says. I'm sure he'd drop it. You got Makhmudov out there. You've got, well, we've already been over AJ. A rematch of Otto Wallin. I don't particularly want to see that. You do have Martin Bakole, who's ranked at number 9. You've got, well, I'm not going to try and pronounce this guy from Kazakhstan's name. Ortiz is out there. Michael Hunter's a good shout. Because rumor has it, and it is just a rumor at the moment at the time of recording this video, it hasn't been confirmed as far as I'm aware, the Hughie Fury fight may be off again. Hughie Fury apparently pulling out for a second time with some type of illness, and Hughie Fury's got a history of being sickly, always having injuries or illnesses and stuff like that. So if Hughie Fury pulls out of that fight, Michael Hunter, he's a perfect opponent for Tyson Fury for December 3rd. Step in there with Hunter and prove to the world that you can take out one of the more mobile and skillful heavyweights in the division. Tyson Fury, again, is supposed to be head and shoulders above everybody else. This is what he says, and this is what his supporters say. So explain to me why Manuel Charr is an okay opponent for him when he's not even ranked in the WBC top 15, but Michael Hunter isn't. And of course, you've also got Filip Bergovic, you've got Efe Ajagba. I mean, even Derek Chisora at this stage is a more credible opponent than Manuel Charr. At least he's in the WBC top 15. So, yeah, let's hope that Tyson Fury is bluffing with this bizarre Manuel Charr thing. The only way I can give Tyson Fury a little bit of a pass is if he fights Manuel Charr in a non-title fight, because champions of old, back in the 80s and the 90s, 70s, 60s, some of them used to have actual stay busy fights, non-title fights in between title defenses. This was quite common in the old days in boxing. And so if Tyson Fury were to do that and the belt's not on the line and it's just whatever, a 10 round or however many rounds you want to make it, non-title bout, a tune-up, okay, he's got the Usyk fight potential. You know, if he ends up fighting Usyk right after, let's say he fights Manuel Charr in a non-title fight, then fights Usyk in an undisputed, that I'll find more acceptable. But if he goes and fights Manuel Charr and it's a title fight, no, come on, that's unacceptable. And even if it's a non-title fight and he goes on and doesn't fight Usyk afterwards, that's also unacceptable because, as I say, there are lots of contenders in the heavyweight division who are hungry, who are more deserving of a shot than Manuel Charr, and who have much better ability than Manuel Charr. How old is Charr now? Is he like in his 40s? I mean, he got knocked out by Myris Breedis years ago. Breedis moved up to heavyweight for that one, knocked out Manuel Charr with one punch, an uppercut. You guys remember that? It would just be probably the lowest point of Tyson Fury's career, from my perspective, if he were to go in there and knock out Manuel Charr and then start talking about how amazing it was and, oh, I knocked out Charr and no one's ever done this. You know, taking advantage of the ignorance of a lot of boxing fans, because Tyson Fury likes to do that a lot. That would be the lowest point of his career as far as I'm concerned. So that's my take on the situation. Now, as far as AJ and what he's doing and whether he's going to take the fight, as I said in the previous video on this topic, it wouldn't surprise me at this stage if Anthony Joshua may want the fight because he's in his feelings. He wants to get back what he once had, and not just in terms of titles, but he wants the respect back of the public, you know? He understands that people don't believe in him anymore, and that, well, a lot of people never did, but the people who used to believe in him, many of them don't now, and that hurts him. And so he wants to win the respect back. He's in his feelings. Frank Warren has said this. I suspect this is true. Anthony Joshua wants the Fury fight in December. But I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Hearn, and particularly DAZN, don't want AJ to take that fight. Because 3 losses in a row, I mean, their cash cow is just being flushed down the toilet. He's already got 2 losses in a row, a 3rd loss in a row. I mean, how much money can Anthony Joshua demand for fights when he's got 3 losses in a row, particularly if he gets stopped by Fury, which is a possibility? How much money can he demand for fights? And therefore, the deal that he has with DAZN, where he's apparently going to always fight on pay-per-view, how can they sell AJ on pay-per-view if he's got 3 losses in a row? Do you know what I mean? Maybe there's provisions in the contract, performance-related provisions, I don't know. But yeah, DAZN surely, I have to imagine, would want to build Anthony Joshua back up, build his brand back up before putting him in there against the Tyson Fury. But I guess the other side of the argument would be maybe they don't have enough confidence in him to build him back up and get him a title shot 12 or 18 months down the line. Maybe they think he'll get beat by somebody else before then. You know, that's the other argument, but who knows? All I can say is that Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn still seem to be clinging on to the possibility of this fight actually getting made, whereas Tyson Fury is talking about fighting Manuel Charr. Make of it what you will. Leave your comments in the comments section below and let me know what you think.